Welcome back, everybody. We had some leaked information today that revealed Shadow of Mordor is getting a sequel. For those of you who do not know, and I'll go ahead and post the link down below as well, but for those of you who do not know, Target leaked the cover art for the new Shadow of Mordor. This, of course, is called Middle-earth: Shadow of War, and is a direct follow-up to 2014's Shadow of Mordor. It is being slated to be released, according to Target, August 22nd of 2017. Now, I'm curious too, because we do know a while back ago WB had made an announcement to save the date for March 8th for 2017, where they were going to release something. Prior reports had already mentioned something about it possibly being a Shadow of Mordor sequel. It could potentially be a sequel to a new Batman game. But fans were speculating what this could be. And with this announcement of them releasing something coming March 8th, and Target releasing this, I imagine this is probably what we were going to get. And we may receive information as well about the new upcoming Batman game, because we do know that WB Montreal is also working on a follow-up to their Batman Arkham Origins. So with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something from both. But during this event, I think we are definitely going to, I can imagine we are definitely going to hear more about Shadow of Mordor, that they are going to release more information about this new game called Shadow of War, and what it's about. But from what they've been able to deduct from the leak, thanks to Target, it does follow the story of Talion and Celebrimbor as they are trying to forge another ring in order to fight the One Ring. So it's going to be interesting to see where they decide to take the story in that. But overall, it didn't really come as a shock. I knew it was going to come eventually. Just Shadow of Mordor did very well. It was a very well-received game. It is one of the best games on the next-gen consoles that you can play. If you haven't picked it up, the Game of the Year edition's dirt cheap, has all the DLC. It is well worth your time. Here are my hopes for Middle-earth: Shadow of War. I really hope that they continue with the Nemesis system. I hope they even take it and make it even bigger this time around. Make it more consequential. Make it better. One of the crazy things is when someone killed you, they recognized you. It was a really awesome mechanic that honestly a lot of other games could really focus on as well. Shadow of War really needs to build on that mechanic and make it better. That was one of the major things I really enjoyed in that game. I also, of course, enjoyed the stealth mechanics. I enjoyed other things. One thing I'm kind of curious about is, are they going to make the enemies harder? What abilities from the first one are you going to get? Because pretty much by the end of the first game, Shadow of Mordor, when you got to the end, you were pretty much OP. You could slaughter an immense amount of orcs, go through them like they were nothing. But I don't want the whole game to feel overpowered either, and I'm sure they'll work something out. I also don't want it to be some cop-out where they strip Talion and Celebrimbor of all their powers and make them restart over too, because that always comes off corny when a game decides to do that. I mean, my wishes for its story. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor story was never great. It definitely took an interesting take on some of the Tolkien lore and combining it in there, making its own, bringing in the character Celebrimbor from the books and elaborating on him, and kind of Monolith Studios really came through and did a good job making that character their own and creating their own lore. One thing I do hope that they do, I do hope they kind of decide to bring it into Lord of the Rings. Depending on how well it sells, depends on if we're going to get a sequel or not. But for the most part, I really hope that they tie it in. I don't know where they're going to go with the sequel. They did leave it open, but I kind of feel like they could have just left it with Shadow of Mordor as well, and it would have been just fine. But these are just my thoughts, some things that I want to see. Another thing I really want to see is some more emphasis on maybe combat techniques. Newer, powerful moves would be pretty cool. Maybe moves to kill multiple orcs at one time. Make the combat more fluid. I mean, Arkham City was able to take the combat, which you can tell Shadow of Mordor is heavily inspired by, but they were able to take the combat in Arkham City that they had from Arkham Asylum and apply more moves, apply more gadgets, things like that to be able to plan in there. I also would really like to see more of an emphasis on maybe using your environment to your surroundings. Like, one of the things you could do in Shadow of Mordor was poison the enemy's grog. And then, of course, their people would go and drink this. It would disorient them, make them easier to kill. A lot of what I enjoyed in that game was its stealth. I loved being able to sneak around and take out enemies. And in the earlier parts of the game, if you haven't played it, that's something that's really going to help you out in the long run, is taking out the orcs and captains that you can by using stealth. I'm curious to see where this game goes. 2014 when that game came out, that almost made my game of the year. The only thing that disappointed me with Shadow of Mordor was its final boss, and that's something I really want, is more emphasis, more difficult bosses following the pattern of the hammer. But that's something that I definitely want. It did almost make my game of the year. Is it going to make game of the year this year? We're gonna have to wait and see what the footage is like. Going off of my experience with it, I definitely think it could stand a chance, but it has a lot of strong contenders this year as well. It's going up against a lot of other AAA titles, so it's going to be interesting to see if it can retain its Game of the Year status that its prequel had done. But I'm sure we're going to see more about this March 8th, and I'm sure we're going to see even more about it during E3 this year. So, don't worry about that. I'm definitely sure that we're going to see much more footage and learn a lot more about this game, especially during E3 this year. But your thoughts, your opinions. Are you guys excited for a new Shadow of Mordor game, Shadow of War? Did you guys play Shadow of Mordor and enjoy it? Leave those comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. You guys have been watching the Spoony Bard, and most importantly, stay happy, be happy, game happy. The Spoony Bard is checking out.